right, welcome to the next episode of Discipline, Desire, and Dedication. My name is Dakota Lang, along co-host Garrett Cotton. Today we're going to be talking about our journey with performance windows. So I know we share a lot of other people's success stories on here, but have an opportunity to share ours. How we got here today from whenever you bought my first plane ticket to go to Denver, Colorado, and whenever you were serving tables and got the phone call and went to Utah. So kind of go into details and depth about what our thought processes was, what kind of emotion we went through, and trials, challenges, and also highs that we all experienced in this past 3 years, coming on 3 years.
August will be 3 years.
August will be 3 years, and I'm just over 2 years and 3 months, I believe it is, or something like that.
Feels like 10 years.
Yeah, we're just over 2 years. Yeah, actually. So. Yeah, Lord, it flies by, huh?
Yeah, no, it feels like it's been forever too, though. At the same time.
So let's just go. Let's start from the beginning, right? Kind of talk about what you were doing. Little backstory though is me and Cotton. We were in college together at Kappa Alpha Order. We're fraternity brothers, pledge brothers, and we always had the ambition to try to do something great. Just never really knew how to do it.
We both wanted money. We just didn't know how to get it.
Yeah, we both wanted a lot of money. Just didn't know how to get it or where to find it. And there was times. Me and you were living in the KA house, and it was just me and you just talking. Like, what can we do? And little did we know that we'd be sitting here today. Having a podcast together, making a lot of money and changing a lot of lives. So let's kind of talk about backtrack. Let's start off with you on the initial phone call to have the opportunity to go to Utah.
Yeah. So whenever I was I was technically a senior in college. I didn't graduate at all, by the way. So it was like my fifth semester, so that's why I call it my senior semester. But I started to work I was going from Chili's, and at this time I was trying to get out of Chili's, and my degree was going to be in health systems management. So I started to work at my mom's company at hospice just for a couple of months to kind of test out the industry that I'm going into. Well, thankfully I was still in college when I was trying this out, because that's what made me realize I don't need to waste another semester of college to get a degree, because I don't want to do this stuff. But went into work at Bridgeway Healthcare and Hospice, and in those first 3 or 4 months, it was terrible. When I worked at Chili's, I could pretty much make my schedule. I could make cash every single day, walk out of there with $100, $120 a shift, live day to day, and it was easy. When I started working at healthcare, my pay had dropped, my hours increased. It went from me working like 4 days a week to working 6 days a week, making less money than I was making 4 days a week. And then on top of that, I loved the Chili's lifestyle because I could take vacations whenever I wanted to. So I'd go on ski trips and I'd go on beach trips wherever I wanted to go. But when I worked at this corporate job, coming in to make, less money, I'm only allowed 2 vacations a year, so like 2 weeks of vacation time and all that kind of stuff. And you have to earn your PTO, like all this kind of stuff, which is crazy to me. But anyways, I started working there for 2 months, and I already had a ski trip planned on like the end of the second month. And they were like, well, Garrett, you can't go on that ski trip. You haven't earned any PTO. And I was like, I don't care about PTO. I care about my trip that I'm going on. That's why don't pay me. I'm not like, and that's the way that I've always been, is like, if I'm not working, I don't expect pay. I understand, because that was me serving tables. If I'm here, let me make money. If I'm not here, I don't need to make money. I'm okay with it. But anyway, so I still went on my trip. And then going on that trip, they were still calling me, asking me questions, and when am I coming back and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, this is miserable. I was like, I can't even enjoy the vacation. But so long story short, I worked about 3 or 4 months in healthcare and then realized like this is absolutely terrible. Living in South Louisiana, every day I got to dress in a button up and pants, and I'm soaking wet, sweaty. It was not for me. But anyway, so after that 3 or 4 months, I decided to go back to working in the food industry. So I went back to serving tables at Pardo's, which is a fine dining restaurant in Mandeville. And I went from making, I guess, about like $600 a week to about $700 a week. So it wasn't much different, but I was working less days. So it seemed like a win in my book. But as I was working there, I just kept telling myself that I'm looking for an opportunity, looking for an opportunity. I would tell the tables that would come and sit with me, because that's what I loved about fine dining, is I get to network with, successful people that are coming in here whining and dining their clients, or, taking their family and friends out and having these fine dining experiences. For me, I love that I get to be a part of that, even though I'm the guy serving them. I enjoyed being around that atmosphere. But I would tell tables that I'm looking for an opportunity. If they want to hire me, let me know. Like, I literally would tell people that. But then one day, my cousin, Mikkel, she gave me a call and asked me if I'd be interested in, working with Carson. And I was like, well, what's he do? And she was like, well, I'll get Carson to call you and kind of go over everything. But he made good money his first month. He's like made almost $8,000. And I said, $8,000? I said, that's over double what I would be making per month. So that's all I needed to hear. I didn't ask any questions. I said, tell him to call me. Tell me what I got to do. Well, then I jump on a call with Carson like a day later, and he goes on to tell me a little bit about the job, but not a lot. Mainly, all I'm hearing is how much he made. Like, I really didn't even hear about anything else. Like, I didn't know it was door to door. He may have told me, but I didn't even hear that. Like, all I could hear was like opportunity. So I took off on a plane 2 weeks later and flew out to Utah. And whenever I got to Utah, it was a brand new opportunity. I got there. He told me to have the script memorized. I didn't have the script memorized. I tried to learn it on the plane, that kind of stuff. But I get out there, they wouldn't let me work. So I'm like, I didn't come all the way across the country to watch these other people work. I got to get to work. So I went and took a whole day, like 5 hours of walking around a park, studying that script so that I can go live. And then after I passed the script off, the next day I came in and I was 100% on script, ready to roll, and go out there and set 6 appointments on my first day. So the thing is that it was pure excitement. I went out there, not a single appointment ran, not a single one closed, no success at all. But I was doing my job of setting appointments up. So long story short, though, coming in as a knocker, it was just like an eye-opening experience of like, okay, this is a little bit more difficult than I expected, because Carson said he was having all this success. I'm not having the success, but the thing is that I burned the boats. When I left home, this was an opportunity to change who I was and change all of my outcomes. So I invested in that. So I left home. I made clear expectations for everybody that was in my life at home that I'm leaving and going and becoming somebody new. And they're just going to have to deal with it. My mom, my brother, my dad, my girlfriend at the time, like everybody just knew that I was leaving and going to change who I was. But then I became a knocker out here. Took me about 6 months to qualify. And the only reason it took me 6 months is because I kept moving. I was bringing on recruits, training like Dylan. If I wanted to have given Dylan help on his first couple of sales, then I would not have. I would have gotten qualified in those earlier months, but everything happens for a reason. It's a good thing that we didn't get qualified, because I got to be a knocker with Dylan, to learn with Dylan. Same thing with you. I was still kind of learning as you came up. But at that point, going through 6 months of knocking, finally hit my 2 qualifier months, and then that's when Dakota came up. So just a little info about how Dakota got up here. It was funny because me and Dakota, we still kept up with each other. You were doing real estate at the time, doing your thing. We'd talk to each other every now and then, and we try and sell each other on coming to do our things. But it was funny because me and Dakota got on a phone call to talk about this guy, which I'll name drop him because I'll probably never talk to him again, Brandon Curtis. Brandon Curtis was a guy who I got on the phone with him. He worked at Walmart since he was 17 years old. He was probably 26 at the time, 27 at the time. And I called him and I told him, I was like, Brandon, you got to come work with me, dude. Like, come do this. Like, this is life-changing. I've made so much money. And he said, say less. And so I learned a lesson with Brandon. I bought a round trip to let him. He took a week off of work at Walmart to come try the job. Well, if you come try the job, that's all you're going to do is come try it. But anyway, so Brandon came up. I'll go into depth on this story just because it's very interesting. But Brandon, he got there. Day one, we bring him out to a steak dinner because this is my first, he's going to be like a first older recruit that we're trying to wine and dine him and show him that this is legit. And Brandon comes out. He gets a steak. We have a good time. Gets to enjoy some views in Colorado. And then the next day, we go to the meeting. When we get to the meeting, he doesn't pass off script. Well, since he doesn't pass off script, he can't work. So anyway, so he comes out and shadows me for the day just because I don't want him to go home and sit out there. So he comes and shadows me on the day. First day out there, I set a walk-in close, and it closed for like 30-something thousand. Well, he got to see that happen, and he saw me make like over $2,000, and he was just like, unbelievable, couldn't believe it. And I was like, dude, and if you would have passed off the script, that would have been your sale because I would have just gave it to you just to prove to you it's that real. And he just couldn't believe it. But anyways, next day comes by, doesn't pass off a script again. And then I send him home, and I'm like, dude, just go home, like stay at my house, study script all day long. Tomorrow is day one. We got to get you to pass off that script. Because in order for me to get promoted, I needed one more person to pass off the script. Well, anyways, the third day comes around, and he tells me he's sick. He wakes up, and he's throwing up in the toilet. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me, dude. Like, you can't be sick. Like, all you need to do is come say this one-page script in the office, and then I get a promotion. Like, I just need your help. And so anyways, so we're mad at each other. But anyways, he's sick all day. I go to work, and whenever I come home, he's not home. And so I call him. I'm like, where are you at? And the dude had gotten in an Uber and Ubered an hour away to Black Hawk Casino. So he's too sick to come to work, but he's not too sick to go gamble in Colorado. So anyway, so I call him and I rip into him, like really lay into him, like demoralize him just because I was so mad. Because he's ripping me off at this point. So anyways, he tells me on the phone, Garrett, I'm going to come home. I'm going to get that script passed off. I promise you I will pass it off tomorrow morning. I said, thank you, Brandon. That's all I'm asking of you. Please. Well, he would go home. He gets an Uber back all the way home. No, I actually went and picked him up in Black Hawk. I got in the truck and went and picked him up because he lost his money and he didn't have enough money to pay for an Uber back. So I went and picked him up from Black Hawk and drove him all the way back to my house and just ripped him the whole way home. Well, the next morning, I wake up at 5 o'clock to go to CrossFit. And Brandon, he stays asleep or whatever. I go to CrossFit, and I come home at 6 o'clock, and there's a script on the bar with a glass of water next to it. And I'm like, thank God. Like, he's actually learning the script. Today's the day. So I go shower. I get out of the shower. I come back downstairs, and he's still not downstairs. So I'm like, man, where's he at? I go back upstairs and open his door. Bed's made, bags packed. He's gone. Disappeared on me. And I'm like, this is not real life. Like, I cannot believe, because this is a guy, and backstory on it, Brandon Curtis is a guy who I had bailed out of jail and when we were 18 years old in Gulf Shores. Like, we were best friends. We used to play poker together every single night. Like, he was my brother. But yeah, just up and left in the middle, or whenever I went to CrossFit. Got him an Uber, went to the airport, and I hadn't spoke to him since. But that's how Dakota got involved. I called Dakota, and me and him start talking about it, and I'm like, dude, you won't believe what this guy did. Like, I paid for his plane ticket. I gave him a place to stay. The whole night, laid it out for him. He would have made $2,000 on day one if he would have just passed off the script. And Dakota's response was, man, if somebody did that for me, I would be there in a heartbeat. And I was like, really? I was like, well, say less. I said, let's get you on a plane tomorrow. I said, when you want to come? And how long was it before you came up there?
It was within probably about 10 days.
Yeah, like within 10 days. On the phone right there when I was telling Dakota about it. We bought a plane ticket and locked him in.
I was laying in bed.
Yep, locked him in to come up. And then
you bought the plane ticket on the phone.
Yeah, we didn't even hang up to talk about it. Yeah, I was like, if you'll come on.
Let's look at flights.
But that's again, in somebody in my position, I was that hungry to get to the next position. Whatever it took. A dollar amount didn't matter because I knew that the only thing holding me back from life-changing money was that promotion. And I would do anything to get that promotion. So that's what I did. I paid for that plane ticket, got you up there. And then once you got there, kind of come into your story about how you came into it.
Yeah.
Take it from that phone call.
From the phone call?
Yep.
Okay, so
kind of what goes through your mind and where your belief was.
Me and Journey were laying down, and you kind of get the spill about that, and you bought the plane ticket. And in my eyes, I didn't really know what was going to happen. I just knew free trip to Denver, Colorado. I was in. Hell yeah, you know.
Ain't never been there before?
Nope, never been there before. Never experienced the mountains. And I was selling real estate at the time. So
had deals pending too.
Deals pending, yep. Mm-hmm. Deals pending. And I went into the office the following morning, and I was told Aaron Gremion, and I'm like, I'm out. I'm going to Denver. I'm going to see what this is about. Like, told him everything. And he was like, well, damn, bro, if this is legit, I'm coming. You know,
Yep.
I'm like, hell yeah, well, here we go, you know?
Yep.
So as the same thing, you know, you told me to learn the script, but I was so caught up, it's excuses, but I was so caught up in the real estate and everything that I didn't learn the script. I flew out on a Saturday morning. Friday night, I was walking around my backyard beating down the script with ear pods in my ear, just listening, beating it down over and over and over again.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, I'm going to pass it off in the morning. You came and picked me up from the airport, and then we went straight to the meeting.
Yep.
Like, I flew out at like 5 a.m.
Yeah, you
know?
looked cracked out that day.
Yeah,
I remember.
dude, wore out.
Yep.
Yeah, my brain was washed.
I knew you hadn't gone to sleep. That whole plane ride, you were probably trying to learn the
Yep.
script, just frying your brain.
Yep, literally. So I went there. I didn't pass off the script. Same scenario. We went out to the doors. I watched you set a. It was the same day. I can't remember if it was a walk-in, but it was the same day close, double. Made like 2 G's. Remember that?
Yep. It would have been a
one-legger.
It was a one-legger. That dude, he was like, well, it was actually both spouses were there, but he told us at the door it was going to be a one-legger.
Yep.
And then I was like, well, look, if she's here, we're going to want her to be here, but look, we'll send them on by.
Yep.
Carson went in there and locked it down like 30-something.
30-something thousand, yep. And we left, so that was on a Saturday. Sunday, we kept beating down the script. And then Monday, we came back into the office. I passed off script Monday morning. And I flew out on Wednesday because I had a real estate deal closing on like Thursday or Friday. I think it was Ethan Alfonso now. And, well, long story short, that Monday, we went out to the doors and, you know, first couple conversations completely botched. Tuesday came around, and I felt a little bitty. You know, we always laugh about the 3 old ladies that were interested in windows.
They wanted windows.
Yeah, wanted windows, and I was just so humiliated and felt so dumb that I was just like, all right, here you go, you know. And then, I can't even replay that.
Yep.
But let me, before I get too far into it, let me just go through my thought process, because when people say the definition of speechless, I was literally speechless whenever I got to your house in Thornton, you know, the little town home, and you're like, let's go take a walk, bro. And so we took the walk, went down to the park, and I saw the Rocky Mountains for the first time. And I was just like, I was like, the breath was taken out of me. I couldn't even get my words out. You know?
And on that one, me and Caitlin we were just yapping. And then we turn around and look, and Dakota's just like, big-eyed, looking around, and I'm like, "You good back there?" And he didn't have anything to say.
Yep.
Like, I remember, I was just like, "It's beautiful." Huh? You're like, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, literally, people playing around. It was something that I've never experienced before, so it was a complete culture shock for me. And well, anyway, Wednesday comes around. I'm working half a day. We go out to the doors. I set a same day. You were behind me, shadowing me. Set a same day close. You brought me to the airport. I was sitting in the airport and
Missed your flight.
No, I didn't miss my flight.
Oh, that wasn't this one?
No, that was the next trip.
Oh, okay.
I was sitting in the airport, and well, first off, it was the first time I ever really flied, and I remember when I got to the airport. The Denver airport is like you got like this balcony and you look down and there's check-in, you know, like the TSA line, and it was packed.
Yeah.
And I look down and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't even know what line I'm supposed to be in, but it was so overwhelming, right? And I was just like, all right, so I finally find my way. I'm panicking and I get down to the gate, you know, where our gate is in the airport, and you called me. And he said, hey, did you check Voxer? And I was like, what are you talking about? And you hung up on me. And then I was like, what the heck? So I went and checked Voxer. First same-day close. Jared Tupou shouted it out. And whenever he did that, I text Journey, and Journey still has the screenshot, so I think it's pretty awesome. But I text Journey, and I said, we might be moving to Denver. And she said, literally word for word, she was like, I wouldn't be against it. And I said, decision's made, I'm moving. Right then, I made the decision. Just dropped in the chat, and I said, I'm moving here, boys. I'll be see you on a week. You know?
I can relive that day. Like, I remember it vividly.
Yep. And so then I went back to Louisiana. We did the real estate stuff, and Cotton, because he got his promotion to closer, he was beating down the closer script. And people don't really realize how much of an investment you did into me, you know, into this business. I mean, Cotton was paying for my plane because I ain't had no money, and then I had my house. I went home and I tore my house up, ripped all the subfloors out because my house was settling. It was about to be a total loss.
Yep.
And I just knew that I had to take action. You know what I mean? Like you're talking about, like when you left, like this is the new me. Like I'm about to create a new person. And that was the same mindset that I had, is that, after everything that I've been through in my life, like this was the opportunity that I needed to really just reset and be that 1%er in the world, right? And so I went there, tore up all my floors. We were buying tickets and flying me there for a week, flying back for a week because my first day was like March 1st is what I say. I think it was like February 29th. I think it was like one of those years, a long February.
Yeah.
And for March and April, we were flying week on, week off, week on. Every week, I'd fly for a week, go back for a week, fly for a week, go back for a week. That was the only way we could do it.
Yep.
And by that time, got some sales, everything qualified in May. And I moved. Me and Journey moved there officially May 7th of 2023, and I qualified in the month of May. The month of June, I thought, I was like, I got this shit figured out. It's about to be gravy, Boom, hit me right in my mouth. Really reality check.
You didn't do shit in May.
No, June.
I mean June.
June, one sale. 19,000 or something like that. No money, and I'm like, oh my! I got a mortgage. I got everything. I didn't know what I was gonna do.
Yep.
And just kept my head down. It didn't qualify in the month of June. I'll talk about this. And during that month of June, that was the month that Luke Crafassi, 17-year-old kid going into his senior year in high school, came down for the summer, and he qualified. First month he qualified. I'm supposed to be the big dog in the room, and I got one sale.
Yeah, this little 17-year-old showing you up.
Exactly, and it was a complete reality check for me. Really. That month, it was like 31 days, and I worked the last day of June, but the second to last day, or the third to last day, I told you, I was like, I'm done. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just accepting my loss, this is just it. And I sat down on my back porch, I took the day off before the last day of the month, and I just really reflected and checked myself as far as like, am I truly doing everything that I can to control my outcome? And in reality, I wasn't. I wasn't holding myself accountable. I was playing victim on everything else that was going against me. And until you flip that switch and you just take full accountability for everything in life and really believe that you control the outcome of your success, then you'll never win. Okay, yeah. And that was one of the most humbling moments that I've ever encountered in my life, and I really had to check myself. Last day of the month, went in there. I just focused on getting my swag back. I got three or four deals within the first week of July, and then I qualified July and August. Started closing in September. I got because in performance windows, you have to have 5 self-sets to be able to compete for first ups and run other people's appointments. And I got my 5 self-sets in the first week.
Yep.
And we laugh about it because I went to the Florida State LSU game, and all I kept thinking about is, boy, I can't wait to get back and get on this script, to get to learning the closing.
Yep.
And at the point of the office where we were, it was like, there was no other option but me to get them knocked out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's one thing that natural sense of urgency that I had, like, oh, my, I got to hurry up. You know what I mean? Because we had people relying on us. We were recruiting a lot of people coming into the office because at that time it was just me, you, and Dylan.
Yep.
And in the matter of 4 months, we've built this office up to 15 people.
Yeah.
We had a lot of people from Louisiana coming.
Really
Lizzie
quick.
Guppy, Jared Carter, Clay. Clay was closer to November, October. But we had a lot of people coming in, and we're building the vision on getting these people qualified. But at the same time, like, we can't do it with just 1 or 2 people.
Yeah. We needed the help in the room.
Yeah. And, really bought into that and, started closing deals, started progressing. And I'll let you kind of take it from here just from your perspective as far as, like, I mean, it's easy for me to say is like getting my 5 self sets. And self sets, for the people that don't work in performance windows, that is when a director, which is a closer, knocks on the door and goes in there and closes the appointment. They do it all. They're the only person that interacts with the customer, which is, in my opinion, is great money. But in reality, knocking it out in a week was impressive.
Mm-hmm.
It was something that I was very proud of to do.
Yeah, and but that
kind of talk about it from your perspective. Whenever I did get the closer script, we're in massive expansion mode right now. We're recruiting new people in, and you have a brand new closer, which me and you, I mean, we built it from nothing, and then I was coming into the closer role. Like, what was your thought process at that time?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't remember those days. Like I remember vividly knocking because I can only control what I can control, and that's the conversation, right? Talking to the right amount of people and setting appointments. But when I became a closer, like you said, we had so many people in the room that were depending on us at that time that from May until September, in that period of time where I had a closer board up, daylight to dark running appointments every night. Like those were the late nights, getting home at 10:30, 11 o'clock after running 7:30s, I don't remember much of what went on because it was so much stuff happening, because in that period of time, Caitlin had gotten pregnant. We had constant recruits in our houses, in my house, and then you also have recruits in your house, and then Dylan had people in his house. So in a sense, we were trying to balance all of that because I was also helping out with, Dylan, and then we were helping each other out with like Carter and Jared, trying to get all that stuff figured out. So we're dealing with so much outside of work, and then it was so much going on inside of work because we're trying so hard to get to that next role that it was almost like I just blacked out. Like, I really and truly believe, like, you can ask me, like, what do you remember most about closing? And I'm just going to be like, how busy it was. Because I don't remember what I was doing. Like, it was just, I had to go out there with massive action, and there wasn't an option for me to take the foot off the gas.
Yeah, let's talk about that, too, because I always tell my closers that they're extremely lucky. Because I do reward my closers. If you get first ups, they compete for first ups, and if they have a 7:30 or something, well, they can slide it over. You know what I mean? You have the option. That's the luxury of first ups.
Yeah.
And I tell them, whenever we was closing, we didn't have that option.
No.
You know what I mean? I didn't call you and ask you, hey, can I slide this 7:30? You'd say, fuck no.
No, we were hungry.
Yeah, no, it ain't no option. We got to close this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I guess this is part of growth, but 6 days a week, no days off. Like, it's just...
Nobody in the office took off.
No.
Like,
there was no
the
option.
standard was 6 days a week, and that was for at least a year.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't until Kyle Deaver had pulled me to the side to be like, hey, Garrett, let your people take a day off. And I was like, well, no way. I said, I didn't take a day off. And but then we started letting some people take off, and we still maintain a good high revenue and whatnot. But that was the culture.
But that's what it took to build it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
It took massive action at the beginning, and I take that into account for anything that we do. Like even going into wedding venue and stuff. I think we need to have massive action in the beginning, as much involvement as possible until it's established. Because like now the business is running on its own. Like we can be here, shoot podcasts, and we got offices that are running. Yep. It's because of what we built at the very beginning, So I think that's like super important. But, that level of urgency that we had, that's what projected this success so fast is we didn't have time to waste. We had to get to market owner. We had to get to the top of this as fast as possible, and it was a race, So once we got there, then, now it's a new problem to figure out.
Yeah. And so we go through that, that's around the fall time. We're getting a bunch of people qualified. People are in our house. And one story that I love talking about, it just goes back to hard work always pays off, is my Golden Door experience.
Yeah, right.
It's truly incredible because, I started in March of 2023, was working, week on, week off all the way up until May. And, to tell the story in short term is that we're all for like 2 weeks at the end of the year. So in December, our last day is pretty much like the 18th or something like that. Well, at the time, the qualifications for a Golden Door was $2 million. And I knew I was right on the verge of it. Levi Henry, our CEO, sent a message in the chat, and I started. I remember that. And whenever because I forwarded it into the main chat whenever it happened.
Yep.
He sent a list of people that were on pace to hit it, that could or that should hit it, and the people that could hit it if they had a big run. And my name was nowhere on that list.
Yep.
And nowhere on the list. And I took it personal. I took it personal, and I was like, oh no, I will get mine. And so, long story short, we were in December, and Carter Captain Ball set an appointment. It was like 2 days before I needed, it was like 60 something thousand or 50,000 or something like that. I can't remember the exact numbers, but anyway, I closed like a $50,000 deal, and it put me on pace where I only needed like 15,000 on the final day to hit my golden door. I was like, it's GG's. You know what I mean? Like, this is, I promise you, I'll buy these windows. You know what I mean?
To get that golden door.
Yeah, literally. And, well, we were sitting having a closer meeting the following morning. Sure enough, email came in. Cancellation. So it put me where I needed like 60,000 or like 58,000 or something like that to hit my golden door, which is still possible. And I was like, holy crap. You know what I mean? Like, big wake up call. Like, we got a lot of work to do. We got to figure this out.
Yeah. Time crunch.
And in the matter of 5 minutes, my phone rang. Bang, 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 answered it. It was an appointment, that single lady that I ran for on Monday night for cruise. Called me and was like, hey, I just wanted to see if you're still available, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, went over there, closed it for 68,000, got my golden door right there, and that was incredible.
Last sale of the year to lock it in. Yeah.
Last sale of the year. That was the emotion that went through that day is almost unexplainable. Because I don't even. If I wouldn't have hit it then, I would have never got a golden door.
Yeah, because you would have gotten the market on her and then build an office the whole next year.
Yep.
It would have been really hard.
Yeah. And so then we go through the holidays. We do the company conference in January. We go through that, and that was whenever Levi and Kyle asked me to go take over the market in Austin, Texas. And let's talk about that a little bit, right? Especially for the Performance Windows listeners, is that me and you had envisioned the whole time of North Denver, South Denver. I was going to open up South Denver. You were going to be over North Denver, and we were going to build a empire, a dynasty out of the Denver office, right?
Yep.
And that was what we envisioned, and we were sitting in this exact studio whenever, they were like, well, we want to offer you Austin, Texas. You know what I mean? Complete curveball, and in those high-pressure moments, right, and in life in general, right, you might think that you have it planned out, but in reality, you don't have nothing planned. You know what I mean? You can have what you think is the path, but at the same time, you got to roll with the opportunities that come your way.
That's right.
And going to Austin, Texas was one of the best decisions for my career, especially in your career. Us splitting up, getting so far away from each other, and building the culture that we had in Denver across the country, which is what has happened.
It forced us to separate and expand, and that's one thing that me and you both were strong enough to do. Is if we could separate and we would still keep the expansion, versus if we would have stayed in Denver, I feel like we wouldn't have had the successes that we've already had, because going to Austin, there's a lot of people that wouldn't come to Colorado, but Austin, Texas is way more reasonable for them. That's why, like, all the Louisiana downline, once you had gone, like, we trickled through a good bit more of Louisiana, but the majority of the Louisiana downline was going to Austin, Texas at that point.
Yeah.
So that's where that office is built up, and it's just expanded like wildfire across.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And it just shows you, man, that, even though that was the harder decision of going down to Austin, Texas, but it was definitely the most rewarding for both of us.
Yeah, it was the harder choice.
It was definitely the harder choice, and that's a big moment for all the listeners, is that the harder choice is always the route to go, because if it was easy all the time, then everybody would do it. But you got to do what other people aren't willing to do. That way you can have what other people cannot have. And I truly believe that with everything in me.
Comes back to like David Goggins. We're just replicating his mindset. If it's hard, just go ahead and do it now.
Yep.
And that's what we did. The hardest thing was to go to Austin, Texas. Well, let's go.
Yeah.
Got to do it, and it's paid off tenfold.
Yeah, it's and then then came market owner in February. You were still running the Denver office. You spun me off in February, and then you had Lizzie follow in July.
Yeah.
And then Guppy in November.
On that topic of spinning a market owner off. So that was probably because I had gotten market owner in August of 2023. So you were first up closer, you and Dylan, y'all rolling with it. By February, you were my first spinoff. And when you spun off, the emotions of a spinoff, so like new market owners that are currently, working on that, when you get a spinoff, the first emotion is like, oh shit. Like all this that I just built, half of it's gone. When this guy leaves, there's all my revenue. But that's not the case. It breeds for more success, because if you can get the top producer out of the room, it gives an opportunity for somebody to fill that spot. And because there's a void where everybody knows what's capable in this office, so then it gives you an opportunity to find a new number two. So as new market owners are spinning people off, your goal is as soon as you get somebody out, have somebody in mind who's going to be your strong number two. And by keeping that strong number two, it's only a matter of time before you get those spinoffs.
Right, yeah. And speaking on that is after having two, and then, if you want to include Clay, I sent 4 people with him originally. I love spinoffs, because it brings in a new tide.
Yeah.
It brings in a new tide of new people, right? New opportunity for the people that are already in the room.
People that were in the room, they saw that there's a chance to leave.
Yeah, exactly. So I love it. I love it. It gives you more of an opportunity, because the second that any business in general, the second that the business becomes stagnant, then it's failing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You constantly have to have, movement.
New people coming in and old people getting out.
Yep.
It's a good thing, especially even new people coming in and sticking for a week. That's a good thing.
Yep.
Because they came in, they saw that they don't fit the culture, they had to get out. So, but the thing is, you always got to have new people flowing through.
Yeah, for sure. And then we go through that. We had a couple of spinoffs. We go all the way through there, and a year later, how long were you market owner for?
About a year and a half.
Yeah, a year and a half. So now regional, and then I'll be coming up here regional here soon. Just got to keep building. And the thing is now is pretty incredible, because, when we did split, I went to Austin and you were here in Denver, now Utah, but everything that we were envisioning for the future is right in front of our face. You know what I mean? It's right at our fingertips. We just got to grab it. And all it's going to do is just bring in new heights, in my opinion. It's going to be new challenges. It's definitely going to be new challenges. It's going to be different roles, because as a market owner, you're involved with 20, 25 people daily that are, constantly in your office, right, running team meetings, stuff like that. As a regional role, it's a little bit different, just from me seeing your perspective, and I know I'm going to learn a lot whenever I get there, is just the way that you impact people and grow, just in general.
Yeah. That's what, at this level too, now it's continuing to be that person that we want to be led by, and that's because I'm not in front of my market owners every day, but whenever I do show up and I'm in their office, I need to be that person, but it's being that person 24/7. So I'm very thankful, because at regional, it gives you more time to focus on yourself again, because at market owner, you're focusing on everybody else, and it's crazy. It's whirlwind. And then now I feel like, because even I've heard from like Jeff Bezos, like one of his podcasts or whatever I heard from him, is that his day doesn't really get started until like 10:30, because it's not productive for him to be crammed with meetings from like 8 o'clock until 2 p.m. It's productive for him to be clear thinking to solve the big problems like once a day. And if they don't get that problem solved today at 10:30, then tomorrow we'll do it at 10:30. And that's kind of the way I feel like regional is. Like now, when I'm in those offices, I'm there to fix it. I'm there for 3 or 4 days at a time, and I get to fix it over. If I don't fix it on day 1, I got day 2. I've got day 3, and I've got day 4. And I'll definitely fix it by day 4. But when I'm away, I get to focus on myself to make sure I'm in the clearest headspace.
Right.
So, like you said, it's just going to open up more opportunities for us. We're going to solve bigger problems, and we're going to help with the expansion of this company to newer heights.
Yeah. And it's gonna be incredible. So
We only halfway there. I'd say we're still in the beginning. There's
oh
still
yeah,
a
this is
lot
just
of
the
stuff
beginning.
coming.
This is just I mean, you think about what we've accomplished and what all of our people have been with us on this journey have accomplished in those short 2 years, 2.5 years. Um, you give us 10, it's gonna be extraordinary.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. Beyond that,
So, well, heck yeah. Well, I'm glad. I feel like we never really kind of shared our journey on how we got here.
deep
And then
dive.
also, let's before we drop off the pod, because I know we're coming up on time, but let's talk about how Discipline, Desire, Dedication came about.
Yeah.
Real quick. Yeah. I'm gonna let you take it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, for one, we started seeing other podcasts. Like, listen, during Performance Windows Experience is when I started listening to podcasts for the first time ever. Listening to the door-to-door experts. Listening to Cardone's Own. Mentality type stuff. And then for us, me and you started talking, and every night we talk like this, anyways. So we were like, man, we need to just start spreading our message. We need to build that following. And then I think it was kind of like spur of the moment too. Massive action. We always talk about it. The way you do one thing is the way you do all things. It wasn't long from when the idea was presented until our first shoot. And then, I mean, what would you say? Maybe a month, like from whenever we first talked about it.
Probably about a month.
We talked about it, and then went and got all the equipment, and boom, we made it happen in a short
Well,
period.
hold up. You're making that sound so simple, but at the same time, like this room that we're in right now, this studio,
Came a long ways.
first class, right? Mm-hmm. Our first studio, we had sticky tabs that we bought on Amazon, and me, Caitlin, Cotton, and Journey were all in this
Gaps.
room.
There was gaps everywhere.
Yeah, gaps everywhere, and we just had sticky tabs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, I mean, you go look back on the first podcast, me and you sitting there looking at each other and just go, all right, here we go.
All right, and looking at the board, what else?
Yeah, all right,
okay,
what's the next
and
thing?
then we'll talk about that. And then what else?
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about it. Yeah, so it came a long ways for sure.
Yeah, definitely came a long ways, and
but that's a lesson for business, though. Is like, nobody knows what you're doing when you first start.
Yeah.
We didn't have a freaking clue what we were doing when we started this, but we just start doing it, and you figure it out as you go. Same thing with Performance Windows. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. It just we can replicate the success because we've got leadership that paves the path for us. And here, we had people in our network that could help us to kind of get us rolling. We got started. Jack is a huge help because Jack had worked with podcasts prior, so he could give us a little bit of guidance. But for the most part, we were completely guessing. We just bought the cameras because they said these are good cameras, and we got mics because they said these are good mics, and then we just started, turning it on and recording.
Yep, literally.
But that's how it got started. And from there, we continue to expand our knowledge here because we network with new people, and we have new visions with DDD as it's getting bigger and bigger. So, yeah.
Heck yeah. Well, we appreciate y'all listening and following us. Definitely drop a comment below, like the page, share the post, subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. We got a bunch of new stuff going to be coming out here. A lot of new guests. We're going to have some old guests come back and give us updates on their stories, what they have going on in their life. And, stay tuned, and we'll see you next time. Peace.